favorite weather guy. LOL. It is 3:25 on a Monday afternoon. It is August the 28th. I'm West 2 First Warning Meteorologist Eric Burris, continuing coverage of Tropical Storm Idalia. And I'll tell you, got home. I'm like, you know what? Before I completely go into dad mode, I wanted to just pop on because we normally do the 3:30, and I'm like, if I wait around any longer, I am not going to do it. So here we are. All right, there's the latest mesoscale channel of the visible satellite imagery. Definitely watching some convection bubbling. Here's the infrared satellite, seeing more and more convection. And so what I think is happening here is the storm was tilted before, and now we're starting to stack. And as it's stacking, you're going to be able to build up that organization. You're going to be able to start expanding the wind field, and you're going to be able to start to develop the storm system. So 2 o'clock intermediate advisory, winds are at 70 miles an hour. It did strengthen. That makes it a strong tropical storm. Remember, 74 is a hurricane, so we're right there. We're right there. I do think at 5 p.m. it will probably be right there. Whether they go with it or not, we'll have to see how that plays out. Okay. Here's the forecast cone from the 11 a.m. update. Still expected to be a hurricane, and not just a hurricane, but a major hurricane as it makes landfall. So 8 p.m. Tuesday, Category 2 storm. By Wednesday at 8 a.m., making landfall somewhere in this window. And to me, there is no positivity one direction or another as to where this is going to end up going. In terms of advisories for Central Florida, we have hurricane warnings in our western spot, Sumter County, the Nature Coast, Citrus, Levy, Hernando, all those West Coast counties. The red colors mean hurricane warnings. The blue colors, tropical storm warnings. And the yellows and pinks are hurricane watches and tropical storm watches. So, what's the difference between a watch and a warning? Okay, a watch, like the metro area, like the East Coast, means that conditions are possible within 48 hours' time. You need to start working those action plans. The warning, Sumter County, Lake County, that kind of thing, means that you need to be completing your storm preps. Okay, so if you live in those areas, it's just something that we're absolutely going to need to be watching. Okay, the storm itself is kind of starting to show up on radar out of Cuba. Give it a second to kind of rebuffer the radar data, kind of see some of the squally weather out of Cuba, but we don't have access to like the Cancun radar on this source, so we can't get that taken care of for you. But we know that data is there, certainly. So with that said, what are the latest models showing? For right now, it's kind of a Big Bend game. It's a Big Bend storm system. And what is kind of the cruel end all here is looking at the long range models. I don't know if you noticed this. This is no joke either. Some of the long-range models, including the GFS 12Z, bring the system up, out, and then loop it back around. That is no joke. Again, some of the models take it up, out, and then back around. I'm not saying that that'll happen, but when I saw that on the GFS, it's like, you gotta be kidding me. So we'll have to see how that plays out. That's the latest computer model data that we're analyzing and hopefully just laughing at. In terms of the intensity model data, they're all keeping it relatively low end. This is an interesting little hurricane. It's not even a hurricane yet. It's a tropical storm, but it's an interesting little system. So it's bubbling convection. We'll just kind of have to see how that ends up playing out. So let's talk about some impacts, my friends. Here's a look at the latest thought process on the winds. In the purplish, pinkish colors, that's where we're thinking the major hurricane impacts will be. And again, I've told you that as we get more and more data, we can fine tune this. But I know that they've started some evacuations on the west coast of Florida, and this does include, the wind concerns, at least as of now, do include the tip of Pinellas County up through Tarpon Springs, Clearwater, Denellen, East Lake, up through Crystal River, and then up here through Cross City and up into the rest of the Big Bend. Okay. For our Marion County, like our Ocala area, I-75. So Ocala, Bellevue, Rainbow, Springs, you're looking at hurricane conditions. Basically, I-75 off to the west. I-75 to about I-4, strong tropical storm force winds, and then basically I-4 off to the east, it starts weakening to just kind of tropical storm force winds. So that's the wind threat, okay? In addition to the wind threat, we have several tornadoes likely in our western areas, and then there's the storm surge threat. Now, the great news, and I'll show you our futurecast model here in a moment, but the great news here is that more of an offshore wind flow really should mean that we're not talking about any kind of major storm surge threat, to our east coast, but Pinellas, Hillsborough counties, we're looking at a 6-foot storm surge possible, and then the Big Bend, we could be talking about a 9-foot storm surge. So definitely not great. Definitely not an ideal scenario for us. And the reality is there is, if you look at the cone, there is an equal chance of this thing going on the left side or the right side by virtue of the forecast cone itself. So if we just take the cone and say, well, what happens here? All right. If it takes that kind of left side of the cone, the more westerly side, less impacts for us. And I get to go back to sleeping and whatever. And I like that. If it takes the more easterly track, it would then bring heavier, more intense weather to us in central Florida. And that is not ideal. So let's look at Futurecast, which is showing, and I'm just, I'm going to do, I've got that loaded there, but let me just load it in raw. All right. So here's the Futurecast model, and let's just roll through this afternoon. A few showers and thunder showers, winds 10, 15, 20 miles an hour, no big deal. Not anything of concern. Tomorrow morning, waking up nice and quiet, no problems getting the kids to school. Into the afternoon, there will be some, squally weather, some gustier winds, some heavier downpours, nothing too bad, right? And then by 2 a.m. Wednesday, things are going to start to get breezy, and we're going to be watching the hurricane in the Gulf Coast kind of working closer and closer to us. And it's going to be kind of a 5:30, 6 a.m. time frame. And again, that's where our Futurecast model is showing it out west. But, it's not set in stone. But you can see 40, 50 mile per hour gusts, depending on where you live. There's 6:30 a.m. gusty winds as the storm system is making landfall. Gusty winds, 40, 41 miles an hour in Orlando, 37 in Sanford, 44 in Orlando at 9 a.m., and then it kind of lifts away from us. So little by little, it will be moving away from us, and that's kind of the thought process, okay? Let's look at landfall positions for the most recent computer model runs, the 12Z models. All right, let's start with our Futurecast model. And essentially, you see the storm system getting stronger and stronger, and there's your landfall point, according to Futurecast, which would put 60, 70 mile per hour gusts into Marion and Sumter counties, and then right near Jacksonville. All right, so that's our Futurecast model. Let's look at the American GFS model. Notice it's a lower resolution grid. It has trended a little further to the west, but I'm not sold on a westerly track. Look, if it happens, I'll be super pleasant surprised. There's the European. European is a little more east than the others, but not 100%. But that would put strong tropical storm force to even nearly hurricane force winds into our western areas. So, the problem is when these things rapidly intensify, they want to then recurve. And that is, I think, my honest concern. That's why I'm not writing off this kind of easterly track. So we'll see how that plays out. All right. So that's that. All right. There's the forecast cone from the National Hurricane Center. I'm done. I'm tired. I just wanted to get on here and chat with you a little bit, okay? I will be in doing cut-ins at 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm working the 2 a.m. to 2 p.m. Shift. Yeah. That's right, Charles. Strong goes north, weak goes west. If nothing else, I've taught you, Charles. I've taught you something. So we'll see how it plays out. All right? I'm going to go rest and do the dad things. Thanks for hanging out. I will see you tomorrow morning. We've got Wesh 2 News coverage in the morning and cut-ins and all that. And then we'll do Coffee Talk at 8 if I can swing it. And Tracking the Tropics at 10 if I can swing it. Either way, though, we're not done yet. We're not done. Stephanie, weak goes west. What about Ian? In other words, weak will just continue. The stronger is going to want to recurve. Ian got strong. Ian recurved. Ian made landfall. So there you go. All right. It was a paraphrase. He was referring to of other systems. So, all right. I'm done. I'll see y'all later. Tomorrow morning, 2 a.m. Be there, be square. Bye.